high likely I won't be playing next split.
There is a possibility that that I won't be playing next year, but we'll have to see what happens, I guess.
The LCS ranks among the highest in the world for global spending on player rosters, and in spite of the high numbers we consistently put up for talent, we have never had the results to back that up. And with several multi-million-dollar contracts every year for many of our players, this brings up the question of why we even bother to commit to this, and if our philosophy for success needs to be changed. Right now, especially at the top level, there's a huge amount of budget that's being allocated from the teams in acquiring some players, and I feel that in many situations, a high amount of budget ends up being invested to these big name players with hopes that they'll be able to bring results and potentially save the region, but in oftentimes to not much avail. Every year, we commonly hear of these big name players like Sword Art and Perkz costing several $millions per year on their own, just in hopes of being able to gather the right pieces to give North American teams the performance they're looking for. But no matter which all-stars or world champions that we're able to bring in and hope to use to get to the next level, time and time again, the region falls flat on its face. Most of the time, we don't even come close. So why is it that in spite of this, we still spend so much on our players and require to burn such massive holes in our pockets? The main reason right now is because we have to. Don't get me wrong, I think there's a big problem with player salary inflation within the space at the moment. Players are getting paid much beyond reasonable levels right now, to the point where organizational profitability for a lot of the underlying teams just doesn't really make any sense. But at least in the case of NA, it's a tough battle. Let's think about it here. As arguably the lowest performing major region, there really isn't a lot of draw or incentive for many of these players to make the leap of faith to come to our region. It's honestly quite the career risk for many players to even come here, because for many of them it ends up being a one-way trip and they spend a lot of their time or possibly even the rest of their careers in this region. This is why many of these teams end up having to rely on just having a big bankroll and a dream. But now we're seeing a bit of a reality check here for the current player contract economy, as players left and right have been unable to really secure a solid contract on a proper team. Big hitters like Nisqy, Jensen, Broxah, Nemesis, Rekkles, and people from last year that went under the hood like Xmithie have all been unable to really secure good positions. On the flip side, a lot of random players that you might argue are unproven and in some cases are objectively worse than many of the players on the bench right now have been able to squeeze their way onto many main rosters of teams today. How is it possible that as an organization that you manage to end up with a player like this when objectively better options are available and on the table here? The answer to this is both simple and a little more complicated at the same time. Casual sums this up well in this example with Rekkles.
Let's take Rekkles. Rekkles buyout is $1.5 million. Yeah? Yeah? Baby Rekkles, 18-year-old, 1-year ERL player is worth
let's go, man.
100, maybe 80k to 100k to sign. Yeah? Now, Rekkles is $1.5 million, and then you have to pay a salary. Let's say his salary is 400k. Now you're spending 1.9 million euros
Illy mark less than 3.
for 1 year of having Rekkles on your team. But baby Rekkles, 18-year-old, 1-year ERL player is worth 80 to 100k a year. So, if you're a business, you weigh up the profit value, and you say, yeah, baby Rekkles is better. More worth, I save more money. I could buy 19 of them for one Rekkles, right? And then, if the player plays good, not only do you have a player who is a very high caliber in domestic league, but the business is also much better. Unless you have the money where business doesn't get affected if you buy them. And that's only a few EU teams have enough business where buying a player for 1.5 million doesn't hurt them, yeah?
As you can see, the key to this issue is simple: money. The industrialization and organization of the leagues and the teams in it have made the conversation with players increasingly complicated year over year. Huge salary inflation combined with increasing pressure from investors and venture capitalists for these teams have made it quite difficult for many organizations to stomach being able to continuously garner some of the best talent available. Although you might argue that every single team should realistically be focusing on garnering the absolute best possible roster, resources are limited, and it is in fact very important for these organizations to meet their own business goals as well. The reason I say this is also complicated because this then leads into an incredible amount of semantics and other complications that go into an individual player decision on top of the already complicated performance related decision making models that are in place in order to create a cohesive team. It honestly feels bad for many players because they are the victims of the wave of inflation, and because of this, many genuinely good contributors to Professional League of Legends are now out of the job. I'm not gonna dig too deep into this rabbit hole because there's probably just so much crap that's hidden under wraps that we possibly couldn't think about. However, it is not hard to see that there is a real issue here and that things need to be fixed. The drastic change of the lineups of many LCS rosters has made it fairly clear how the methodology of player selection has changed a little bit. At least in the short term, there has been a general focus on playing Moneyball here, with many teams banking on the potential of up-and-comers or untested talent. We've got EG's Jojopion and Danny Duo, 100T's Tenacity, CLG's basically entire developmental roster, and a slew of new imports coming to the space. Of course, we've got exceptions like the GigaChat roster that Team Liquid put together, but these teams are hoping for a great level of change with the pickups and changes of this new talent. All of this leads to my personal opinion that although this definitely sucks in the short term, this quote-unquote correction of the player economy within Professional League of Legends can be really helpful for both the long-term growth of the teams and for uncovering the newest generation of Professional League of Legends. This is a likely painful yet necessary step for stabilizing the league and the teams in it, and personally I think it'll be productive and show its fruit in the years to come. Hope this video was helpful as always, and I will see you in the next one though. Stay fresh.